Hey, if you like to photograph flowers either in your garden or wildflowers out in the field, I'm going to show you how to improve your flower photography using off-camera flash, and we're going to get started right now. Hi, I'm Charlie Borland, and probably like you, I like to shoot wildflowers and occasionally garden flowers, both as part of larger landscapes and also flowers isolated by themselves. While it's not difficult to do, like all outdoor and nature photography, we're at the mercy of Mother Nature. And that means we don't always get the light we want. So it does not matter how easy the photo may be to take, if the light sucks, the photo's gonna suck. So I solved that problem by using a wireless off-camera flash. It can, in many cases, dramatically improve your photography, like you can see in this example. So if you're wondering how to do this, I'm going to show you right now. I'll start with the gear that I always have with me in the field, and then I'm going to follow with the gear I take when I know I'm shooting wildflowers, specifically using speed lights. I always have in my camera bag a Canon 580EX2. I also carry radio triggers, and I use those instead of the infrared technology that's built into the flash, simply due to reliability. Now, you might already be aware of this, but direct sunlight can sometimes come down, hit the camera or the flash, and interrupt that infrared triggering signal that goes between the flash and the camera, and that affects its reliability, especially when there's some distance between the flash and the camera. That does not happen with radio signal triggers. So I carry this little device here, which costs between $30 and $40, and it works amazingly well. These are the NPT-04, and if you want to check them out, the link's right down below in the description. I also have with me this mini light box made by Fotodiox, which softens the light on a single flower very nicely. Now, as I just mentioned, for more expanded photo sessions where I need more than one flash and I'm not going much distance from my car, I will carry several light stands for multi-flash setups, because in these situations, I can't hold more than one flash in my hand at a time and fire the camera. Or if I'm photographing a subject that requires multiple flashes and light stands, I'll carry all of it. Speaking of light stands, mini light stands can be a good choice for flowers that are closer to the ground, but you can also use something like a gorilla pod, which you can attach to all kinds of different things, or in some cases, I use this little mini tripod, because then I can get my flash at various heights off the ground, depending on how high the flower is. Finally, the last valuable item for lighting is a large, small light box, and this is perfect for groups of flower bigger than a single flower. And it spreads light further left and right and up and down, covering a bigger area. Here again, these items are listed in the description below in case you want to check them out. Okay, let's light a flower, and I'll demonstrate by using flowers I, unfortunately, had to go buy. I was traveling a good chunk of the summer, and wildflower season's over. So I bought these flowers today. Okay, first, my strategy for lighting flowers is I want it to look real and not flashed. And you can see how bad these flashed photos look. Contrast that's really ugly. So instead, I strive for a look like the sun is peeking through the clouds, creating beautiful, soft contrast light. As you know, raw sun is harsh, and it's terrible light for photographing delicate flowers, so ideally, shooting on a cloudy day is preferable. The reason I feel this way is the light is much more appealing when adding light to a low contrast scene versus adding light to a high contrast scene. So for this demonstration, I created this setup around my house so we could be in the shade, and that comes close to mimicking an overcast sky. Now, the gravel in my driveway is going to be my background, and that, of course, is not preferable. Usually when you're shooting flowers in the field, you get a nicer background, a more natural background. But since this is all about demonstrating how to light flowers, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But when you look at it, you're going to see gravel in the background. You might think that's ugly, but hey, that's what I got for this particular demonstration. Now, I will say one more thing about backgrounds is you got to remember to watch your backgrounds for distracting elements, and that is tough when you find a flower that you cannot move out in the field and you got a big hot spot in the background or something like that. So you're going to have to figure out ways to deal with that. One of them is to use a fairly wide aperture to throw everything in the background out of focus. And in the case of this example, I started with f5.6 to really throw that background out. Now, one more technical point is how important it is to remember when you add supplemental lighting, you are now photographing with two light sources, the ambient light and then the flashlight. And controlling either light source will be with the shutter speed for the ambient light or the power level or aperture for the flash. Now, the lens I normally use for single flowers or macro is my 100mm macro lens for the small flowers and things like that. But in the case of this, with this dahlia that's much bigger, I'm going to be using my 28-70 because these flowers are so big. The camera and the aperture is going to be f5.6 to f8. I'm not real sure at this point. Now, my ISO is going to be set to 100 as always, and I never go higher unless I'm not on a tripod or I'm working in very weak light and there's subject movement, like the wind blurring flowers, which is, it's windy today, or I'm capturing the night sky. In the case of wildflowers, even a hint of air movement can blur a wildflower, so I will try to set my ISO to whatever I need to keep me around 1/80th, 1/100th, maybe 1/60th of a second to try to make sure the flower is frozen if there's just a little hint of movement. And that's all going to depend based on my chosen aperture if I need to go to a higher ISO to get to that shutter speed. Next, I've set the flash to manual flash mode, meaning no through the lens features will be turned on. And the reason is that I want consistency each time the flash fires, so that the flash output is set to pretty much f5.6, f8, wherever I'm going to be. That way I get exactly the same amount of light from the flash until I move it or I change the flash to subject distance. And in that case, I'll test again. Now, let's go ahead and take some test shots so you can see the raw flash is harsh. So I'm going to add the mini Fotodiox light box and take another shot. I am using aperture priority and my exposure is set to what the camera suggests. But now I want to darken the background a little bit to make the flower stand out a little more. But doing this brings up an important rule about flash and ambient light and the camera. The rule is shutter speed controls ambient light exposure, aperture or power setting controls the flash exposure. If that has you asking, huh? Here's how it works. If your shutter's open for 1 second, let's say, and you click the shutter, the flash will fire as soon as the shutter opens, and then that light goes away and the shutter is still open. If you change your shutter speed, the flash output of light will be recorded and it will look the same, but the ambient light exposure has darkened. These Lupine photos show just that. On the left side is the slower shutter speed, and on the right side it's twice as fast and the background is darker, but the flash exposure remains the same. Now, let's shoot a few more and change the flash output so you can see the difference. Now, let's change the shutter speed and see the difference in the background. The idea is that you change the flash output to get the right amount of light on the flower and then adjust the shutter speed to lighten or darken the background. Okay, so this is the last photo, and it was shot at f5.6 at ISO 100, and it looks good, so I'm going to stop here with this flower. The last thing I want to cover is what to do when you have a grouping of flowers instead of one single flower, where this little mini light box won't cover it anymore. The solution is the larger light box that I showed previously that's 18 inches by 18 inches. However, before I describe its use, I'm going to throw in one more rule at you regarding the concept of the size of the light source versus the size of the subject. When it comes to light coverage, your light source will only spread light evenly across the subject when the size of the light source closely matches the size of the subject. So, important to remember that. Look here, and you can see that with this mini Fotodiox, the light really only hits the flower, but not the stem because its coverage is too small. Now add the larger light box, and you can see that the lighting coverage covers the flower and stem because the larger box has more coverage. So this is why I have a larger light box that I will carry when I know I'm going to be photographing a group of flowers in a particular scene. Take a look here, and you can see a scene I'm about to photograph, and my composition will place the flowers right in the front of the lens. I'm holding the light box over the flowers, and the additional light brightened up those foreground flowers very nicely. On this final photo, I darken the background by changing the shutter speed from 1 second to 1/4 second, and that makes the foreground flowers really stand out nicely. Okay, now I'm going to wrap it up here and walk down to the river to photograph some lupine that are just now blooming. So I'm heading down along the river to get a shot of a lupine that's blooming right along the riverbank. And this is in my neighborhood where I live, and there's quite a few lupine in the forest and stuff like that. One of my favorite flowers to photograph. But I'm late. I've been out of town most of the month, and wildflower season is just about over. So I'm going to get down here and get this one and show you how I would light it in the field with flash. So here we go. Okay, so getting ready to get set up. Here's the gear I'm going to use. I'm going to use my Canon 70D. It's an older version. They're at an 80D now, and a 100mm macro lens, so I can really throw out that background. So that's going to be our camera today. Okay, the flash unit that I'm going to use is a 580 EX2 by Canon. I got a whole bunch of different brands of flashes, but this is the one I carry in my bag all the time because it's compatible with my camera. If I want something for a different type of a multi-flash setup, I really like the Yongnuos that I use. So now, I could put this on the camera and I could go in and trigger it right from the camera settings for the wireless flash, but I hate that infrared setup. Sorry, you may love it. I don't like it at all. And then I'm going to attach it to the mini tripod here because if the flowers, which are back here, are a little bit higher than I'm going to get with the Gorilla Pod. So I'm going to raise this up just a little bit and attach the flash to it. The NPT04 has threads, so it'll just attach right to a light stand, or I should say a light stand that's got a bracket for screwing into the bottom of flashes and things like that. So we'll set that like that. Okay, next I'm going to use the Fotodiox light box, mini light box that attaches right to the front of the flash. This thing works good because if you remember the size of the flowers, this is pretty close to the size of it. So the size of the light source equaling the size of the subject is going to give even light top to bottom. So we're going to attach this. And then finally, the NPT04 4-channel trigger goes into the hot shoe. Just like that. Okay, so I'm coming in with my 100mm macro, and I really don't know exactly where I need to be set up here, so we're just going to get started. I'm going to shoot a vertical. Tighten it down, down a little lower. I like to be pretty much the same height as the flower rather than looking down. Doesn't create as nice of a shot. So this is going to frame up nicely. Well, there's the wind. You can see that's going to cause me some problems, not only keeping my hair out of my eyes, but also freezing the flower in position. So there's little bits of wind gusts the wind gusts, and then it stops for a little bit, and then I get my shot. So I'm able to get this right next to the flower, which is going to work out really, really nicely as far as getting light from here up to here. And so I've got it set right here. Okay, I'm set up and pretty much ready to go. I got the camera with the 100mm macro on it, the wireless trigger in here. The base of the light box is about to the bottom of the flowers. The top of the light box is about to the top of the flowers. I am starting out at 1/32 power. And I'm using the swag exposure technique. If you're not sure what that is, here's the description. Okay, but that's it. I'm totally guessing, and I'm guessing at 1/32 for f4.
Maybe a little bit of that choice comes from experience, but it's hopefully going to be the right flash output for this particular flower. Let's see, shutter camera, the light's getting low. 1/60th at f4 is the current Canon recommendation at ISO 100, and I'm going to stick with it because I'm just going to wait for the flower to quit moving like that and take my first picture. Okay, let's take a look at it a little closer. And by golly, that is almost perfect. I'm going to take another one before the wind picks up again. All right, now if I look at this close, it's a little tiny bit hot from the flash. So I'm going to cut the flash output to -2/3. So that would be 1/32 -0.7. Okay, let's try another one before the wind really kicks up again. Now, if you look at this, you'll probably agree that looks a heck of a lot better. Just quite not a hot little edge on the side of those flower petals. So what we're going to do now is, I think I want to make the background just a little bit darker. So I'm going to go -1/3 EC, or to 1/80th of a second, and I'm going to take another shot. And that's going to make the background a little bit darker. And that's the thing that I talked about earlier in this video. Your aperture and flash control the exposure on the subject, but the flash is not hitting all the light around, and so your shutter speed controls that brightness. And I kind of like my flowers to stand out from the background just a little bit, but not look heavily flashed. Maybe look like the sun's dabbling down through the trees or something like that, creating a nice little side lighting effect on the flower. Okay, that was perfect. Now, this is a -1/3 or 1/80th of a second. Now the flower's really starting to stand out. I think the flower's standing out a little too much, but I'm going to try one at 1/100th just for the heck of it and see if I like it better. The background still looks fabulous, but the flower's got a nice little bit of sparkle coming from the left side from the flash unit, and I think it looks fabulous. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go ahead and shoot a couple more in between the wind gusts, but I think we've nailed it here. So to summarize this, basically, get a little small flash with a diffuser on it for soft light. Raw flash, hard light, diffuser, soft light, and put it to the side, and then try to find the balance of the flash power and the ambient light for making that flower really stand out nicely. And you're going to have a winner for sure. Oh, there's a bee. I wonder if I can get him. Let's see. Yeah, got one. He's on the back side now, but I'm going to keep trying. There, come on around. There he is. Yeah, got him. So anyway, for the most part, you balance your ambient light with the shutter speed for lighter or darker, and then you can adjust the flash output in slight 1/3 increments, and then once you find the perfect flash, just leave it there. So anyway, that's a wrap on this.
One more thought on photographing in the field is to, of course, not step on or trample any flowers at all. No picture is worth destroying the subject we are trying to photograph. So please be careful. Okay, that's a wrap on improving your flower photography using flash in subtle ways, and I hope you really enjoyed it. Be sure and hit the subscribe button, and please add a like. If you have any questions on lighting with flash, post those in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. And finally, if you would like to expand your landscape and nature photography and learn more about lighting outdoor subjects with flash, be sure and visit my online tutorials at the Nature Photography School by following the link below. I have an online course called Wireless Flash Techniques for Outdoor and Nature Photographers that covers this exact subject on lighting flowers, mountain bikers, your camp tent, and much more. You can find the link below in the description along with a 20% discount coupon code. We also offer ebooks and online courses of the business of outdoor photography, improving your landscape photography, Lightroom, and more. Okay, until next time, go find some flowers and create some beautiful photography. Thanks for watching.